African continent, we have become a continent of crying babies, a continent of whiners. We are always complaining. We are always blaming others for problems facing Africa. We are whining a lot. Problems facing Africa are caused by Africans themselves, are caused by African leaders who don't have interest of Africa in their own hearts. They have their own selfish interest. They don't have the interest of their people in their own hearts. So when these leaders meet in African Union Summit, instead of discussing problems facing Africa and how to solve those problems, instead of discussing about the civil war in Burundi, instead of discussing on how to unite as Africa and form one economic bloc to be strong, they used that opportunity to insult Western countries, to insult the United Nations, to say how they are not respected, to discuss on how they can withdraw from International Criminal Court because most of them, they have cases in International Criminal Court. Whatever they discuss in African Union Summit, there is no way it's helping Africa. They discuss about their own issues as leaders. Western countries will never come to Africa to develop Africa. China will never come to Africa to develop Africa. Whatever they do in Africa, they do it for the interest of their own people. When China comes to Africa, they build us a piece of road, a piece of railway, a piece of building, and then they take our natural resources to their own people. Whatever they do is to serve their interest. African problems can be solved by Africans themselves. There is no another way. There is no shortcut. So, instead of blaming others for own problems, blaming the white man, when Mugabe stands before Africans in the African Union Summit and start insulting Western countries, insulting white people, because that you white people with long noses becoming so disrespectful of other people elsewhere. Most countries in Africa, like Zimbabwe, they got their independence almost 50 years ago. But what have they done to make their countries better? There's no white man, there's no white people now in their own country. When the white people went, they didn't go with African natural resources, they didn't go with land. But in Zimbabwe, people go to bed without food. People cannot be able to farm, to provide food for themselves. And yet, you blame your problems to the white people. That's being unfair. That's being too much. We cannot blame people every time for our own problems. We have to sit down and discuss on how to make Africa better instead of blaming other people. We are not a lesser continent. African continent is not the only continent that was colonized in this planet. Most other continents, Asia was colonized. But they don't cry a lot the way we are crying. We are not respected because we are black people. Because we are what? Being black, it's no problem. Because we have leaders who doesn't want to think. Instead of discussing about the economy, discuss about the technology. Discuss on how to take African continent forward. You are discussing non-issue in African Union Summit on things that cannot help us. International Criminal Court. How can it impact the lives of African people? How can withdrawing from United Nations help African people? How can to be admitted into United Nations Security Council, how can it help African people? Agenda number one, the priority. How can we develop Africa? Ourselves. How can we be independent? We have been depending on donors, on aid, money from outside for so long. How can we sustain ourselves? The solution is not going to China. The only solution is how to be independent, on how to exploit our natural resources ourselves, not to invite other people, come exploit our resources, then make us roads, make us railways, make us bridges, make us building, and then they take natural resources that were given by God. You invite them to Tanzania, they take Tanzanites, they take all minerals, they take gold. You invite them to Kenya, they are taking natural resources. You invite China to Uganda, they are taking copper, they are taking various minerals, and then they make you a piece of road, a piece of building, a piece of railway. And then we cannot exploit those resources ourselves. And then we want to be respected. Respect is earned. You don't sit down and become poor and expect to be respected. You have to fight for yourself. We live in a competitive world. So let us stop being crying babies. Let us stop being whiners. Let us start re-energizing ourselves to discuss on how to develop Africa. We have natural resources. We have what it takes to develop this continent. But now, 21st century, African continent is the most poor country in the whole planet. It's the most darkest continent from International Space Station in the space. We have to discuss on how to lighten this continent. We don't have even a piece of satellite in the space. We don't have internet of ourselves. There's nothing we have for ourselves. And yet we have audacity of standing to lecture people who have made this planet a neighborhood. Somehow we must have respect for other people. They may have done something wrong to us, but we have to let bygones to be bygones and forge a better way forward on how to unite with other people elsewhere to develop Africa. That's what we want. We cannot live in isolation as Africa and expect to develop. We cannot insult other people and expect us to develop. We have to start looking at ourselves in a different way. Inferiority complex is affecting us because we are black people. That's why white people don't respect us. Because we are poor. That's why white people don't respect us. They are undermining us in the United Nations. We want this. We want that. Let us stop crying.